All right, 3, 2.
Welcome to Simple Talk Podcast, Coffee Chat Series, where we sit down with people who work with technology and chat about career, technology, fun, or any other tangential subject that come up. We have a few simple rules. The only religion we discuss is whether ADS was a good product, and the only politics we discuss is who should have the biggest presence on search engines. On today's show, we have a person who, when I went to look them up on the internet, I realized we both had the same interesting issue with our name. Non-technical people share our first and last name exactly. For me, it's a trumpet player. There's a famous-ish trumpet player named Louis Davidson who has been taking over the spots in recent years. And there's also this actor who spells his first and last name completely different, Lewisdavison, who has a slightly bigger presence than I have on the internet. For today's guest, when I searched for his name, it came up with that he was a folk music singer. While this guest is one I personally know the least about, and I'm really interested to see when I ask him, what he does for fun out of technology. I don't think he's a folk music artist, but I'm not sure, and we'll get around to that line of reasoning. Today's guest is Erik Darling. Hello, Erik.
Hello, I'm here. And just an important note for those who are only listening, my name is Erik with a K. Not Erik with a C. If you go and you type Erik with a C into any of those things, you will find someone who might be the love of your life. You might settle down, might be great, but it won't be me. And if you type Erik with a C by accident, there is a strong chance that whoever you find will be some sort of serial killer because their parents spelled their name wrong and they have just led some kind of life bereft of morality.
That is awesome. So you're probably not, shall we just say, a folk music singer?
Oh no, man! If you ever heard me sing, I don't think you'd last. I'm so bad I couldn't even get into the folk music scene. Like they had Bob Dylan and a whole bunch of other people who knows, but man, I couldn't do it.
I assumed we'd be insulting someone today. I did not know it was going to be Bob Dylan. And
yeah, why not? Start off strong.
Music singers and their voices.
Yeah, just jump right in.
So, like I said, I've known you, I guess, for years, but I've never really talked to you. I don't really know exactly what you do for fun. I just know you put up a lot of videos on YouTube.
That's true.
That come up every month or so when I'm doing the SQL Server Central Database Weekly, and I watch some of them. They're really good.
Wait, you do Database Weekly once a month? How does that work?
There's four now, 5 of us.
Oh, okay.
I
see. It's a rotation. All right.
Yeah.
So you're the nice one who puts my videos in. It's the other people I got to talk to who don't. I got to yell at them.
Let me just say that if you put in a description in your video, that was 2 or 3 sentences, it would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because
for you, it would be a lot more work for me. Do you have any idea how many videos I put up?
I do. It's a lot.
The title is descriptive enough.
The title is
very descriptive titles. That's the key right there.
All right. So
yes,
let's just jump right in then.
All right, fine.
I know when I was a kid, I never once thought about being in data.
No.
Maybe a game programmer. I first came up with when you first played Robotica. I think it was a Robotron on these little green screens in high school.
Yep.
I was like, this is cool. And then I realized how much math it was, and I was not that good at math to start with.
Yeah. I remember my first experience with that was there was like that missile defense game where you had to know exact precise angles, like 47 degrees, 93 degrees. And I was just like, I'm out on this.
Well, we've established that you're younger than me now. That's for sure.
Well, I guess maybe.
So what was your origin story? How did you become the person who tunes databases incessantly now?
God, that's a weird one.
I hope so.
So I had always been into computers, maybe obviously. I don't know. But I had always had an interest in technology because when I was at least when I was a kid, everything was the shadow of the 80s with computer animation, the future technology, laser stuff everywhere. And so I'd always been interested in computers and, had home crap, whatever. I was like always always as a consumer though. Like I get jealous when I hear stories of people who are like, yeah, I grew up and like I was programming when I was like 8 and like I had Basic and like all these magazines. Like
I know.
like my mom was a second grade teacher. She would bring home started off bringing home for the summer like old Apple computers and just like these stacks of the worst video games. And so I was just like playing video games on a computer. Like let's be honest, I was not programming. I was not doing anything high level. But I did always did like computers and like solving computer problems. So like something would break and I would be able to fix it. And then when I was like, I don't know, like 19, I was like I dropped out of high school already. I was miserable when like working for like moving companies and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to turn this around. And so I took this like certification course, like an NT4 sysadmin certification course. And I was like, this is going to do it. And like, I got my certificates and like, I was blazing through everything. And then of course, like, you go to find a job. No one wants to hire a 19-year-old with a certificate as a sysadmin, right? They're like, okay, kid, like, sure. Yeah, you can take care of this, kid, right? You can fix all this stuff. But like, so like I got nothing out of that except that like at home, I would find like junk computers like in the street. And I would in my bedroom, I had like 4 computers like hooked up and networked. And like I think back, and one of the funniest memories I have of that was like, installing like NT stuff on those things. And of course, like what's part of an NT environment? Database. What was on the SQL server? So like, I'd set that and be like, hey, look, I can log in and do stuff. But then like I would be like, what do you do with the database? And like I would look at like queries and I'd be like, this is so boring. Who would want to do this? So of course, that's where I end up in life. True. Yeah, it was just like it was like it was like probably Northwind or something. It was like select from employees, join jobs or whatever. And I was like, who cares? Like, how could this go wrong? So yeah, like after that, I had nothing there. I was a bouncer for a long time, and then not quite like Roadhouse professional bouncer, but I was a bouncer for a bit, and that was my favorite job. But I started dating this girl who did not appreciate the bouncer lifestyle. So I got me a normie job, and I was showing up like I guess 9 to 5, and I was working for a market research company that was like in like what was called the data processing department, which was terribly terribly dull work because it's exactly what data processing sounds like. You're processing like mailed in surveys and stuff. But eventually, like just through like attrition, I ended up like supervising that department. And my boss at the time like had me doing a lot of stuff in Excel. And eventually it was probably a VLOOKUP or something. And I went into his office and I was like, this thing sucks. Like this not do what I want it to do. And he was just like, oh, you should just do it in SQL. So what does that turn into? Like you get SSMS, you get to figure out how to load an Excel file into SQL, and then you get to figure out how to do all that stuff there. Yep. And that was just sort of like my trial by fire. And eventually I just they started just having me do more and more stuff with SQL. And then I ended up doing like a lot of like, I'm going to call it ETL, but really it's just like some file imports. So like to get like stuff from like providers into the system, and then like writing reports and stuff. And eventually I just got so into SQL Server stuff that I was like, I want to do this. Can I be a DBA here? And they were like, absolutely not. We have no need for that. And so that's when I had to go out and start. That's when I went out and found my first DBA job. And I guess it's all sort of downhill from there.
Downhill. I think it's uphill.
Well, uphill is way more difficult.
You won't have the same problems if you have to ever do it.
That's true. That's true.
Right? It won't be like,
well, I mean,
go away.
God forbid. If I ever have to look for a job, something has gone terribly wrong.
So what got you pushing into like the internals and being like really good at that? Was there any impetus or just?
Yeah, I mean, like, so, like the stuff that I had to do with like initially was like writing reports and stuff. People get real mad when reports don't show up as fast as they want. So like I had to get on the performance tuning side of stuff, like just be on like write a query that gets the right results. I had to get into the performance side of stuff pretty quickly. And I remember like way back, one of the first things I had to do, they were like, reports. They produce like hundreds of thousands, millions of rows. No one wants to see them. So one of the first things I ever had to do was figure out how to do paging in SQL Server. And of course, like this was way back, before there was a lot of stuff about it. But it was a SQL Server Central article by Paul White about server-side paging. And I remember reading that and thinking like, wow, like the indexes and the way you write the query and all this other stuff really makes a difference. Like holy cow, like how do you know all this? How do you learn all this? And so like I just, basically started following like Paul White articles and SQL Server Central stuff. And that, like God bless the stuff you do where you like syndicate other stuff, so you're able to find other people who do that stuff, because you search around, there's a lot of crap out there. But especially back then, it was just like the articles that like people would like the Blogspot articles that people would irresponsibly publish to tell you to do all the wrong things. Not a good time. But like like you would like find like like Paul Randall and Brent and everything, and a lot of like the other older bloggers, and then like start buying those like Kalen Delaney books with all the internal stuff. So like, it just kind of steamrolled for me. It was just like a very natural, like, oh yes, I've found my place in the world.
Cool. So the next question is, what technology makes you excited to get up in the morning or stay up late to use? Doesn't have to be data related, but it typically is.
Yeah, I mean, come on, that's a short one. It's like there's always like 15 different interesting like performance-y things that are on my mind that I want to like either like find a better way to explain or find a new way to talk about, or like just like new way to get the point across. Because like let's face it, is specifically SQL Server people, we've been complaining about and fixing the same like 10 to 20 problems over and over and over again. Like just no one listens, no one pays attention. So you're just constantly trying to find that thing that you can put out there that will eventually grab people and get them to like do the right thing with stuff. Like you complain about like scalar UDFs, table variables, like non-stargable predicates. Like it's all the same stuff over and over again. You're just like, I need to figure out what's going to get through. And so like, aside from the sort of like, the evergreen stuff that like, like I'm ever working with clients, it's always the same stuff. And they're like, really? That's surprising. And I'm like, have you not? You sought me out and paid me. You just read the blog. You could have avoided paying me. So like it's always like this funny thing.
What are you doing? Like, don't do that.
Yeah. Like wait, what's on your mind? Like you could have just read something and been on your way. But yeah, it's always like something like that. But then like the longer you do it, the harder you have to try to sort of like impress yourself or outdo yourself. So there's like always some like weird stuff that I have on my mind mixed in with that. But for the most part, it's just like trying to figure out how to make more approachable, understandable, better content that will get people past the learning humps that I hit along my way and that a lot of people still struggle with now.
So do you get most of your inspiration from people or from reading or just from coming up with problems
So I would say like a lot of the stuff that I do, I think Kendra Little has a funny phrase for it, because the cost threshold for blogging. So like as soon as you hit a problem like X number of times, it's worth blogging about. So like I sort of have that, this like client work for me is just about every day. So I find myself having to do the same things over and over again. I figure I should probably talk about this either again or like in a different way or something. So that's where a lot of it comes from. And then there's also like writing like demo training material for me is always helpful, because you're trying to come up with like something you saw out in the world and reproduce it on like a different data set. That's always challenging, because it's not always gonna like be as straightforward as like oh well, if I just rearrange this index so it's a little crappier or something good, like this thing will happen. So it's always good to like get that and like challenge those assumptions and figure out like exactly what was going wrong with a specific circumstance. So like that is part of it. My favorite thing these days is I put the LLMs to work and I ask them to do stuff, and they screw it up so badly every time that I'm like, this is perfect. Like this is like I couldn't have written a crappier query if I had dedicated the whole of my day to writing a crappy query. Like whoever feeds the LLM stuff, mwah, you have made my life so much easier because all I have to say is like using the Stack Overflow schema, write a query that does this, and it gives me the worst possible version of that query right off the bat. And I'm like, I didn't have to do anything.
I always find that the hardest part is coming up with an example that's bad enough to be real, but not so realistic that I have to talk to the HR people.
Yeah.
I had that a couple times in my last job. They'd be like, is Lewis sharing information about people? I'm like, no, happens. Everybody does it. Let me show you a few references.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's easy with the Stack Overflow data set to like, be perfectly clear about what I'm showing. But like, just, having the ability to just have something like spit out a fully fleshed out, like every anti-pattern you can jam into one place thing it has been a real blessing. That's a lot less typing for me. And I don't have to sit there and wonder if like, because like when you do performance tuning work and you do performance tuning presenting, and you like get in front of people, a lot of the times the people you get in front of are people who like know a thing or two, know what they're talking about to some degree. And so you show them this stuff that like you like basically like reproduced from a real world example, and they'll be like, that's totally unrealistic, no one would do that. And you're like, buddy, like I still have scars from this. Like, I'm still like working through some of my emotions from when I saw this.
I know there's this set of realistic but okay examples.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the set of phony made up ones. Then there's some real things that occur, and you're like, no, that's dumber than I could even pretend exists.
Oh yeah, like
you it existed.
Yeah, like you see like the trigger that calls XP command shell that runs an executable that like calls like a curl service to like hit a URL and like upload a file somewhere, and you're like, yeah, of course, like who wouldn't do that? Like perfectly reasonable. Or like like I don't know, anything people do with Service Broker. God bless. But like you see the stuff that people ended up doing in the real world, either because they didn't know any better or because it seemed like the fastest, easiest way, or maybe it was the only way to do something at the time. Like you have this database, and like I was guilty of this too when I first started working with SQL Server, where it was just like, you had the server, you had the database, you had T-SQL. Like Microsoft gave you so many things that you could do within that, because like they just kept expanding like the realm of what you could do inside of SQL Server, that you were like, well, if I can do all this here, it's all self-contained. I shouldn't have to worry about anything else. I'm like 90% of the time doing something in like C# or some other language would have been smart, but I didn't know I still don't know C#. So I still ended up doing a lot of stuff in T-SQL. I'm like, okay, well, I guess because I know how to do it, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah, but like it's annoying too, though, because like like for me, the performance tuning work I do, like a lot of it ends up being like entity framework, Link, like some ORM driven thing, and it's always this constant battle where it's like, man, I would love to produce some content about like how people screw things up when using an ORM, but then I have to learn C#. And so like you have to learn how to build a car just to learn how to like teach someone how to like use their turn signal, right? Like put on a seatbelt, like stuff like that. You're like, yeah, this is like a lot of startup time for a very little reward.
Yeah, that's always been the downside of being a database programmer, is this boring looking to the outside world. Yeah. You can't like impress anybody. Look, here's a bunch of data. And you're, okay. Yeah. I mean, you eventually become impressive when you start giving them answers and things, but just looking at the data is not going to get you as much attention as the person that wrote Crossy World, bouncing bouncing my mouse and my microphone around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I'm not on the side of things where like I make data useful for people. I just get whatever data they wanted there faster to them. Like they decide if it's useful or not once it gets there. But For me, I'm just like, oh, well, like it takes 30 seconds now. Okay, well, now it's there. And they're like, well, this data still sucks. I'm like, yeah, but it sucked really quick. So it's got that going for it, right?
How often do you think this would be better if someone they could just redesign the whole thing? Does normalization ever come up? Just wondering.
Yeah, of course. Normalization is one of those funny things because usually at the point people start regretting it is at the point where it'd be really painful to like actually do. Like you have like what's the classic example? Like you have that orders table, and that orders table has all of the order information in columns prefixed order underscore, and then all the customer information in columns prefixed customer underscore, and then like whatever other sets of relevant stuff and like whatever underscore, and then like all the like contact stuff where it's like email underscore 1, email underscore 2, phone underscore, and you're like, we could make this a lot better, but it would be a lot of tables and it'd be a lot of moving data and a lot of like redesigning all your queries to make these tables talk to each other. And they're like,
that sounds like work.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, can't we, like, isn't there a button we can press? I'm like, yes, the pay invoice button. I have to go now.
All right, so I know this happens. It's got to happen occasionally. That
Just occasionally.
There's something you don't know, and you want to learn more about it. You've already dropped a few names that I'm totally happy. Yeah, and I would drop myself if I was answering the same question. Where do you learn? Where do you go to learn about technology?
So, like, if it's limited to database stuff, it really I think it's interesting because at this point, like at least for me, I feel like I have at least a pretty solid fundamental understanding of like the core set of problems and issues that like I'm gonna have to solve normally day to day. Occasionally there's like an esoteric weird thing that I have to go out and do that requires me to like tinker with my knowledge a little bit and like test certain things that I thought were true, or test like certain like practices that I've always gone with. But like I think what's tough now is specifically with SQL Server is Microsoft adds in new stuff, right? And like it's not that it's not documented, it's just that it's not documented the way stuff used to get documented, where there would be like good internals that would like also be presented to you by someone somewhere along the way, right. like the real like nuts and bolts how this thing works. So when you run into weird stuff with the new stuff, like you don't have a lot of options out in the world to go like read about it or watch a video and learn about it. Like a lot of the new stuff that comes out, and especially because it can change from cumulative update to cumulative update, and the reason why nothing gets like fully internally documented is because they don't want to have to like manage every single little change across every single cumulative update. And so like, oh, if you're on SQL Server 2019 CU 17, this is how scalar UDF inlining will do this. But if you're on 18 or higher, then it'll do this other thing. And you're like that'd be a nightmare from a documentation perspective. So like for new stuff in SQL Server, it is really tough because you have to dig really deep. There's often like some extended event that may or may not fire, right? You'll search in extended events, like even if click the little debug box to make sure you find everything, and you'll find like an extended event name that exactly matches the thing you care about. And you're like, oh, here we go, I'm gold. And then like fire it up and you're running the thing and you're trying to get stuff out of it, and just like the extended event screen is blank, and you're like, oh boy, this is not good. This is not good. So, I think I am quite lucky enough to have made friends with a few people they were the big brain people at Microsoft that I can email if I'm in a real tough spot with stuff, to just like sanity check, like, hey, is this an actual thing? Like, is this really how this works, or am I just seeing something weird? I maintain a pretty good relationship with other people in the community who, are fairly big brain on these things. And so I'm always, so like, I can always, I can always talk to them about stuff and see if they've hit something similar or have like, they figured something out that I didn't figure out quickly. So like, a lot of it now is like trying, like with the new stuff that comes out, that's always like the wildest adventure because there, like, you just don't get the same level of like Microsoft information about stuff. Like like going back to like blogs that I used to read, that like Craig Friedman, who was on the optimizer team at Microsoft, he wrote bang up blog posts that like, like still relevant today. Right. And he was in on all like like he had contributed to a bunch of the Kalen Delaney books. He's fantastic. He hasn't blogged in like probably like 20 years at this point. But like, like reading those when I was like trying to figure stuff out was just so enlightening. And the fact that it came from someone at Microsoft who like, could tell you exactly how this thing is implemented and why, and when things might get weird with it. That was like golden era stuff. Like that just doesn't exist anymore today. No one is blogging at that level, at that regularity. Mostly it's just like pamphlets on like new thing to get you to use it without a lot of real explanation about like, hey, you might run into this problem, stuff like that.
Very true. Basically, you learn from other people who are also smart. That's
well, it's like it's either like a lot of self experimentation, which sounds a little bit less family friendly than I intended, or it's like bothering someone I know with like, hey, have you seen this? Is this weird, or am I have I lined up too many wine corks on my desk?
No, I know what you mean. That's kind of where I always do. I get started to write an article about something. Like I just wrote something about bit count.
Yeah, I saw.
And it only exists in 2022, so I was going to make a version for 2019.
Oh.
Well, I made that, and that was cool. And then I was like, well, how do I test this? So you start testing it, and you're running. You'll get the plans, you're running.
Yeah.
And what you thought was going to be like 20 minutes worth of work, 4 or 5 hours later, I'm still sitting there writing code.
I mean, you're lucky too, because like the query finished. Like sometimes you do this stuff and you're still waiting for that query to be done. You're like, wow, that's something else.
I tested it to something I just wrote recently. I tested 2 billion times to make sure. I ran it for every single integer to make sure it worked. It took a couple hours, but it finished. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of integers. A lot of integers out there. Positive ones, negative ones.
The next question is the most dangerous of them all.
Oh boy.
What do you do outside of working with databases? It can be technology. It can be painting pictures of fuzzy bunnies. It's really anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, like honestly, outside of databases, I don't really do much with technology. I am happy to draw my line there. And I think that does make it a bit easier to, step completely away from things at times. There are other technology things that I'm interested in, like I absolutely adore the infosec space. I think a lot of like this is a lot of like cool stuff that goes on in there. Like that, there's a lot of like just neat, dirty laundry and like messed up hacks and stuff that go on. I think that space is fascinating. And like if I could redo my career, I probably would have like gone in that direction. Because I like that is some juicy stuff that stuff just goes on and on and on. I realize it's a lot of the same head bashing, solving the same problem 10, 20 times over and over again. But like some of like the stories and the background and stuff there is way wild. So I absolutely adore that space. So like I read about stuff in there, but I'm not like actively like learning stuff and like reading TCP/IP RFCs and stuff because that's just too much for me. So like outside of databases, I don't really get into much technology stuff. Home life, wife and kids. So I'm not like not wild in the streets the way I used to be. I'm a firm believer in barbell training, hence the logo there. So I try to get to the gym on a fairly regular basis. Sometimes it shows more than others. But yeah, so like that, and then yeah, and then I enjoy like the I don't know, like the food and wine lifestyle. live in New York City, so there's no shortage of neat restaurants and places to go.
My
So,
gosh, you're
yeah,
right.
yeah,
It's crazy.
museums, restaurants, wine stuff, and then of course traveling because eventually you run out of things to do even in New York City. So we're a big traveling family.
Nice. Yeah, you know, it hurts me too that I didn't notice the barbell when I was trying to think, what does he do? And I have some joke about that in the intro. Did not even think about the barbell.
Well, some people think about it more than others.
That's pretty wild. So no fuzzy bunny painting. That's
no, I
nice
mean
thing.
I'm a born doodler. I don't have any really fine-tuned art skills.
So the next question is from our Redgate State of the Database Landscape 2025. The report came out today.
Ooh,
You can read their entire report here
it's your
at
birthday.
the following. That's true. It is his birthday.
Happy birthday, State of the Database Landscape.
At this very long URL, which will be in the show notes. So don't feel like you have to capture it right here really quick.
Easy to click.
This probably seems like a softball, but you do training for people. Well, what kind of excuses do you hear about why people can't get enough training?
Oh man,
so many conferences, can't do things like that.
Well, I mean, conferences are expensive, right? You got to fly there, you got to get a hotel, you're off work, or usually you're off work. And there, it's like going to Past Summit. There is like a completely separate like hall community of people who are on like production emergency calls. So like that certainly exists in the conference world. A lot of it is what I sympathize a lot with, because the companies that I worked for were never keen on spending money on training for me to do stuff. Like it was just never like a priority. So like going to a conference, forget it. But like, just getting like normal training for stuff was like completely out there. So like I sympathize a lot with that. So I try to, like with the training that I provide, I try to make it a price that is approachable for a normal human being who doesn't have company support, because the company support thing is something that comes up a lot. But, let's face it, even if, you get like, let's say you like buy a training package, like you still have like, it doesn't work unless you use it. There's no osmosis. Like you can't like, bang your head against the computer monitor and have the knowledge like magically enter your brain. You get as much out of it as what you put into it, right? It's if you don't actually sit there and watch the training and like go through like the concepts and all that other stuff, it doesn't do you any good. So like people are like the same people who are like, hey man, I could never afford training, my company won't pay for it, I can't do anything. Like even if they had it, like would they watch it? Would they like actually make it through it all? Would they actually dedicate themselves to that stuff? So I think really the two challenges are, A, like the financial support for it, and B, like the just like having the time for developing yourself in that way. But and like I don't want to sound like too heartlessly capitalist on this, but if like if you don't dedicate yourself, if you don't like take away from your fun time to learn about this thing, to like get more deep into it, to get better at it, then you're not going to like stay on pace with people who are willing to do that. Like you do have to make some sacrifices in your life, and like either your fun or your free time or your family time, or if you're bored at work, your employer's time, to like actually like participate in the training, go through it, like learn this stuff and get better at it, like apply it to what you're doing. If it's just like if you just have a collection of like videos or like books or whatever, and like you just never like actually dig into them, then it's not doing you any good anyway.
Opinion such as when you're bored at work may not be compatible with my employer or Simple Talk.
Well, you're never bored at work.
No, I'm kidding.
All that fun database stuff you get to do.
Yeah, no, I'm not. But
other people would be. Steve is obviously out there shoveling hay whenever he does.
I don't know how he does it. He's insane.
Oh, he has dedicated himself to the horse life.
Yes. So Eric hadn't seen this graphic, but this is exactly taken from the webpage I sent. These are the factors. Lack of time is nobody has the time
No.
Financial support. That one, I'll give you that one. Training is expensive if you can't go get more training.
Yeah, can be.
Limited available relevant training down to 29%.
You know, I'd agree with that a bit because, you know, actually, you know, for like if you're on like the cutting edge of stuff, yeah, there's no relevant training for you. Or if you're in an area where like everything is constantly in flux and changing, it's real hard to get like training that is like up to date with where you are, like stuff on like the cloud or like new Microsoft products, like the training for that is like relevant for like a week. And then, like it is all of a sudden it's just like, no, this whole thing changed. Never mind. Like, I feel bad for people who try to do training in that space because they're updating a lot of slide decks.
Yeah, I love going to a presentation on a conference and they're like, this changed yesterday.
Yeah.
My demos don't work.
Yeah. Still not exactly sure what it does, but yesterday it did this.
So let me just read this because this is an audio podcast as well.
Yeah.
Lack of time was 67%, obviously.
Yeah.
Lack of financial support, only 39%. I'm pretty impressed by that. Limited available relevant trainings, 29%. Lack of management support, 22%. Personal reasons, 15%. Other 3%. I think the management support's really kind of scary when, like, your managers want you to get better.
Yeah. Why would managers want crappy employees?
I don't know.
That's a weird one.
I don't know if it's to keep them there. I've never quite understood why.
Yeah.
They wouldn't want it. I know they may not have the budget for it. Sure.
I guess it might keep them from asking for raises or something. Like, I feel like I'm a senior or something or other now after getting this training. Please pay me twice as much.
It is a very complicated thing, right?
Yeah.
Giving people training because then they get better and then you're afraid they're going to leave, right?
Right. It's one I would love to see a breakdown on the personal reasons. Like, I don't know.
I would guess
my butt hurts. I don't want to sit here anymore.
Family or
I guess so.
You know, I can't leave for like my mother-in-law lives with us.
Yeah.
It's hard to it would be hard for both of my family to go places.
Sure, right. Well, yeah, but you going to a conference on your own, you probably have some coverage there.
Yeah.
Are you going to Pass Data Community Summit this year?
Yes. Oh, yes.
You are? All right, cool. What about the mini pass events? I'm very excited for those.
I'm planning to.
You're planning to? All 3 or the subset?
The ones in America.
Ah, okay.
Would be certainly more likely.
I'm
going to the Redgate Summit in London next
month. Right. You are going to that.
I'm excited for that.
Do you like Indian food?
I do.
You do? Okay. So if you're going to London, my wife and I's favorite Indian place is called Dishoom, Dishoom. It's in the one that we always go to is in Shoreditch. Usually the conference stuff is pretty close to Shoreditch. I think the Barbican thing is pretty close to there. So if you're looking for a recommendation, I would highly recommend Dishoom because that place, every time we go there, it's great.
Cool. And I will not ask them for Indian hot. I don't know if they do that in there, but
they would see you and they would hear your American voice and they would know better.
I've had some that like go, oh yeah, sure you do. I've had sometimes you ask for Indian hot and it's not really that hot. It's just about right. And then sometimes it's like,
yeah, they had mercy on you.
Hey.
There's an Indian restaurant in Brooklyn called Masala Wala, and they do Indian hot whether you want it or not. And we can only go there in winter because if you go there any other time of year, the suffering is just immeasurable. Like you have to go outside and just like dive into a snowbank before you move on. It is up there.
Yeah, I'm sort of a Nashville hot chicken person, and
right.
Sometimes that just destroys me. So you stop eating hot food, it stops. You stop having the tolerance to it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So anything you want to share?
The only thing that I really have that I would like to put out there into the world is SQL Saturday, New York City is taking place May the 10th, 2025. It'll be at the Microsoft offices in Times Square. We also have a performance pre-con on May the 9th. It's a full day thing by Andreas Volter. I think that's how he says his name, but I don't want to mess things up too bad. So he'll be there on May 9th doing the pre-con, and then we have the full day Saturday thing on May the 10th. I will be at both days giving out lunch. So I will be there for, whatever. And, I'm an organizer apparently. So,
apparently
they put me to work on stuff. So I'll be there. And, I hope if you're in the area, or if you just need an excuse to get to New York City in the merry month of May, you'll, drop by.
That sounds great. I really wanted to go to that, but I'm
too busy for us.
That was one too many things.
Gotcha.
So on X, you're Erik Darling Data.
Mm-hmm.
On YouTube, you can look for Erik Darling Data. On the web, it's erikdarling.com. On LinkedIn, darling-data. And on TikTok, @darling.data. So this discussion of TikTok brings up a bonus question from Kellen Gorman. She wants to know what's up with the animated characters in your TikTok video. So I'm going to share that video here while we're sitting here, and you can see as I start the video, it's got a little love you and little hearts and googly eyes. And so what's up with that?
So the fun thing about TikTok is I am far too old to do anything with TikTok. My wife, who I jokingly call my social media intern, does all the TikTok videos. So she'll download my stuff from YouTube, sometimes chop it up, other times just YOLO the whole thing out there, and she'll add appropriate, sometimes inappropriate, sometimes misspelled hashtags in, and whatever cutesy little animation she finds pleasant for the experience. So I don't have any direct relation with the TikTok videos aside from the content creation. My wife handles all that. So if you leave any nasty comments, she's the one who sees them. So if you can't be nice to me, at least be nice to my wife.
Yeah, that was nice. When she showed that, I hadn't seen it. I didn't even think about looking on TikTok, and then this one was the first one that came up. I was like, "What do you mean, love you?"
Yeah, don't feel bad. Most other people don't think about looking on TikTok for me either. It's like the last. So like, huh? TikTok.
I didn't realize you could do 17-minute videos.
I didn't know that either.
3 or 4, but not 17.
I'm surprised she did all 17 in one go. I might have to have a talk with her about that during a performance review.
Okay, I think that is actually it.
All right.
Thank you very much,
cool.
Erik.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're next.
Take care. Bye.